Okay, after the long anticipated 48 hours, we are back and talking about my story. This is the first chapter of which I am born. So in April 25th, 1982 in Coopeville, Washington, I was born on Whidbey Island to a Rose Marie Lang and Steve Joseph Lang, and lived in Oak Harbor for about 7 years, at which point during my childhood I have a couple of memories that to point out, but the real lesson behind this first beginning bringing up experience is that rebellion, fear, and disobedience get you the best attention. Whether that be negative attention or positive attention, it gets you the best attention. And my ideas during my younger years was I want the spotlight. I need a lot of attention. I was a very emotionally driven and on the verge of too active of a kid. So I needed a lot of attention and I craved it. And where I couldn't get it, I decided to stray from where you should be going onto where I knew I could get attention right away, immediately, whether that be good or bad. The ones that I remember is I was a big rock thrower. So rock fights in the cul-de-sac or in the neighborhood were a regular. One time I got dotted right in the middle of the forehead with a big rock by my best friend Derek. My mom, when I came home, she was like, "Oh gosh, are you okay?" And I remember something to the effect of, "Wow, you just need to learn how to dodge it better, or you just need to learn how to throw better, or play," So I'm thinking as I grew older, throughout my younger years, is like I would get into mischief, but my mom and my dad would try and guide me in the right way so that I could develop that into something useful. What I did not know at the time, which I find out later, is that not only does rebellion and disobedience bring you a lot of attention, but so does winning. And that's where my competitive spirit started to accumulate, and it started to fester into a small little spark. So in Little League, my dad was the coach of the baseball team. In soccer, also my dad was the coach of the soccer team, and he wasn't a really emotionally "I love you," shedding and spreading love kind of person. He was pretty gritty, and he only talked if he needed to talk. I believe that's a good way to put it. And my mom was the opposite end. She just wanted to love, she just wanted to support, she just wanted to be with. And so I really enjoyed that, and I turned more towards a mom's side once the downfall of the family unit happened. So I have an older sister, my only real sister, Renee Lang, and she is not Renee Lang anymore, but she's changed twice. But that'll be later in this story. And she's a year and a half older than me. So she's 40 years old, a little older than 40. Next year I will be turning 40. But she was the one that I really looked to for guidance and support, and always gave me more than enough attention. I think she really thought I was her little teddy bear as I was growing older through my younger years, and knew that she had an instinct that something was going wrong in the family unit and wanted to protect me and be my guidance counselor, or the person that can advise me to grow in a way that I should. Because I found that as the separation started to happen, and that it eventually happened, I distinctly remember on an old nasty couch in our living room, or family room, whatever you want to call it. We had both. And everyone crying and saying, "This isn't going to work. We are separating." And I, being 5 years old, did not really hold the concept of what that meant. But leading up to that point was my sister's guidance and feeling that they want to be away from each other, my mother and dad. And while that being the case, if they were away from each other, they were also at one point or another always away from me and my sister. And so my sister was always filling in for that other parent and just making sure that I didn't get hurt, to be honest, because I did a lot of rebellious and a lot of disobedient things growing up. I believe it was to gain attention. And we'll end that first growing up chapter right at that point of 5 years old, to where we started to have that conversation about the family unit separating. But backing up, I want to tell you a couple of quick stories. One I remember of getting bit in the ass by a dog while I was riding my bike. And a lot of these happen to be revolved around bikes, which is kind of silly. So that was, I never gotten bitten by a dog other than in my ass, in a cul-de-sac, in my cul-de-sac on a bike. And the second really distinct memory was breaking my bike in half after going off a big jump, because I like to be in the spotlight. I like to have attention. I needed and drew from that attention, getting from wherever I could get it. And so jumped as far as I could. You know, we set the newspaper out a little bit further to see how far we could go. Landed and busted the bike straight in half. That was funny when I came home with my bike in two pieces, and my mom looks at me and goes, "What in the world happened here?" Another quick story was playing football with the older kids. They were probably 12, 13 to 14. And I was 4 or 5 years old, 4 years old, let's just say. And, you know, I'm running to catch the ball, and I ended up, you know, fumbling it or whatever. And then another guy, a bigger guy, had the ball, and I went to tackle him, and it bounced off and landed on the ground. And they were like, "Man, you should just get out of the way. I mean, you're not going to tackle me." But that wasn't my mindset. My mindset is, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to win. I'm going to tackle this guy. And it didn't end up happening that way. That was a big fail on my part. But I wasn't injured. I didn't break anything, and I haven't broken anything up until college years. That I never went to the hospital for anything broken. Let's put it that way. Other than, I guess, this scar on my face, if you can see it. That was probably when I was 3 years old. I was digging into a trash can, pulled down a wine bottle. It shattered on the ground. I fell on it, cut my face open. My mom says when I came out of the bathroom after I was screaming, I wasn't really screaming, but I was like, oh my God, you know, like, I don't know what I was saying when I was 3 years old, but you know, whatever. And she says, "What happened?" And I give her this big smile, and it splits open, and she's like, "Holy moly!" Rushed me to the hospital, got a bunch of stitches, and so now I have this this awesome scar. What else? I think that's gonna do it for now with the first chapter, needing attention, being in the spotlight, having to be center stage, and knowing that in order to gain more attention and get to where I want as far as getting attention from others, is to be rebellious, was to be disobedient, and these were the ways that I asked for additional attention. So we'll start with chapter 2, we'll call it, hopefully tomorrow. So thank you for joining me on this journey.